Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So good morning, Shaykh Alkarkari. It's really such a pleasure to have you here. So my name is Akou. I am a professor here at IU. I've been here for 21 years. I am a fashion historian, and so everything I do is about the history of how people adorn themselves. One thing I'm particularly interested in is religious dress, not just clothing, but also other aspects of adornment like footwear, jewelry, head coverings, many different types. I'm interested not just in how people use religious dress to communicate their identity as a group of people, but also in how people use adornments as a direct way to experience their faith and the divine. To that end, I curated an exhibit that is currently here on campus titled Divine Adornment, Community Stories of Belonging. The exhibit draws from collections that are at the university, mostly from the Middle East and Central Asia. But the purpose of the exhibit is more global, which is to really humanize Muslims and to really explore the reasons that Muslims, as a practice of faith, engage in adorning their bodies and how that might inspire others. Last night we had an event where we had several speakers, including you, who talked about your own work, and particularly patched cloaks. Shaykh Mohamed Faouzi al-Karkari is joining us from Morocco, where he is a Sufi master, a spiritual guide, humanitarian activist, founder of the Karkari Sufi order, and the newly founded Al-Karkari Institute of Sufi Studies. The Al-Karkari Institute aims to engage in research and discourse on Sufism's intellectual, philosophical, social, and cultural dimensions. This approach bridges academic exploration with lived spiritual experience, fostering dialogue that promotes understanding, respect, and peaceful coexistence. So I have just a few questions, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing your perspective. So the first question I have is, yesterday you and Dr. Casewit described some of the history and symbolism of the muraka, or patched cloak, including some of the colors and their meanings, and why a diversity of colors is used. I'm wondering if you could talk a little about some more practical issues. For example, how the muraka is made, where does the cloth come from? What kinds of cloth are desirable? What do the different types of cloth mean, if anything? How is the garment supposed to fit? And who is responsible for making each muraka?
I seek refuge in Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee we worship and from Thee we seek help. Guide us upon the straight path, the path of those whom Thou hast blessed, not of those who incur wrath, nor of those who are astray. Amen. O Allah, confer your favor upon our Master Muhammad and the family of our Master Muhammad, the way you conferred your favor upon our Master Abraham and the family of our Master Abraham. O Allah, confer your blessing upon our Master Muhammad and the family of our Master Muhammad, the way you conferred your blessings upon our Master Abraham and the family of our Master Abraham. In the worlds, you are the praiseworthy, the glorious. In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. In the name of Allah. In the name of Allah. In the name of Allah. 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 There is no power nor strength but in Allah, the Sublime, the Magnificent. In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. May Allah reward this sister who attended that event with us. We pray Allah that it met her favorable judgment, and that of all who attended, that of all the university, from the oldest to the youngest. We ask Allah that all what we say be sincerely for His sake. Whatever we have said correctly comes from Allah, and all mistakes come from us. As far as the patch cloak is concerned, the practical aspect of the patch cloak, including how its pieces are collected and how they are connected or sewn, so that it becomes fit for covering or wearing. The patched cloak was brought about by the people of Allah as a method of training of the ego soul, and so that, in principle, the disciple follows its method. So praise be to Allah, who made it one of the methods or principles of wayfaring to Allah, on the path of spiritual ascent and heart purification for the sake of achieving knowledge of the soul, and knowing its changing colours and states. This patched cloak is sewn from different pieces of fabric, or even from pieces of the same fabric, which are sewn or patched together. These pieces of fabric can be wool, skin, or fur. These are the predominant pieces of fabric from which we make the patched cloak, because these are the basic materials used to make clothing. As we mentioned before, this patched clothing was first used by our Master Adam, peace and blessings be upon him. The first patched cloak was made from the leaves of paradise, which Adam combined to make a patched piece of clothing that concealed his nakedness, and this is what he was wearing when he came down to earth, which is a mosque for everyone who worships Allah, and for the followers of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him. So this patched clothing, which was first made from tree leaves, is now made from the traces of leaves. Even if we say it is made of cotton or of fabric, that cotton is something produced by worms that graze on those leaves, or on the leaves of the trees. And when we say it's made of fur, that fur is from the skin of the animal who grazes on the grass and the leaves, the tree leaves. Of course, this is the origin of all fabric. And if we say it is from wool, it is also from the sheep's skin which grazes on the same grass in the same way. It is possible for the patched cloak to be made of a mixture of fur, wool and skin, or from only one of these types of fabric. As for how it is made or prepared, in our wayfaring and in our Sufi order, the patched cloak has two types or styles. The first type is what we call the muraka. It is more orderly and put together in appearance. Both types of cloaks are patched, but we give the name muraka to this orderly style, like the style of the one I am wearing now. It is done in an orderly way, with specific measurements, under the supervision of a tailor or professional seamstress. They sew it in this orderly manner, as this sister knows in this field. Given that she is a professor in fashion, colours and clothing, she is surely knowledgeable in this matter. They measure everything and make it look neat in order to bring happiness and joy to the soul. And there is also a second type of patched cloak which is more difficult and harsher to wear that we call the dabla. This is, of course, for those who can bear it, as it calls for a higher level of patient endurance. We give the task of wearing the dabla to those who have the internal strength to bear it. In reality, the dabla is the root of the muraka. It is the truth of the muraka, and it is what is used in training the ego soul, and it has so many benefits. Among its benefits is ridding oneself of pride and vain self-admiration, and teaching the human being humility, brokenness and patient steadfastness. It is related to the highest principle of complete surrender and displays total surrendered trust in the spiritual guide. Because when he instructs you to wear the patched cloak, and you accept it with a beautiful acceptance, you accept the rupture of a primary habit of life. You give up the clothing you are used to wearing, the clothing you are familiar with, to replace it with the dabla or the muraka. This is not an easy step to take, for you to move from one thing, one culture, one habit to breaking your habits, in order to show and say to your guide, I am ready to follow you in your teachings, and I hand over my destiny, my spirit and my soul to you, so you will help me ascend in the realm of spiritual stations, and in the realm of wayfaring, and in the realm of divine attraction. in order for me to know the reality of the hidden treasure of the Spirit, and the truth of the treasure of this knowledge hidden in me. And so you make your way with this intention. This is why it is an experience that, instead of putting the aspirant to some other kinds of tests, we use this method to test them through the patched cloak. And we ask them, through this muraka, well, the truth is that it carries so many lessons, because the patched cloak is in fact. Since our sister here is asking, we will speak of its first origin of making it. One should search for those pieces of cloth that were discarded or thrown away and are no longer in use at all. This is the material we use to make the real dadabla. So one should gather scraps of cloth that one finds on their way which are no longer fit for anything. We even say they are not even fit to make a pocket, meaning that those shreds were thrown away and their last owner is done using them as they became so worn out that they are no longer good to be used for anything at all. So you learn to look in what others threw away, and you pick from those things the most beautiful thing that you possess, which is your search for the truth of spiritually training your ego soul, as if it were the truth you found on your way, which was discarded or thrown out by others. You find it among the things to which people paid no attention, ignoring their inner reality and lofty spiritual rank. When you find it, you respect it, clean it, arrange it, and adorn it. And out of it, you make a work of art that is an expression of the inner states of your soul. So we say to search for yourself. Why should you search for them yourself? Because it is you who is seeking to find the truth of yourself. This is the truth of the Dabla and of the Muraka. Then you become accustomed to searching for these scraps of cloth everywhere you go, either while spiritually wandering or continuously in everyday life. And when you find a piece of cloth, it is as if you found a treasure. You conceal it, then add a second piece to it, then a third. You then clean them and purify them, and you continue to recite invocations on them while weaving them together, or a piece, with thread, until they all become one. We say that this thread should either be white or black. Black represents the inward, because black is the color of the night, the color of keeping secrets, the color of concealment. White is the color of the outward, of elucidation, of knowledge, etc. So you sew the pieces with either one of these two colors. When you sew the dabla, you do it in a state of invocation, so that it becomes an exalted thing, because thus you have produced or written us a book. That book in which you gathered the horizons. As my Lord, glorified be He, says, we shall show them our signs upon the horizons and within themselves. Do they not then behold? So you gather these scraps from the horizons and you gain a habit, because if you belittle even the smallest thing in the horizons, you will belittle one letter, or one movement that is inscribed within this divine book, which is the Book of Horizons, about which my Lord, glorified be He, says, that day we shall roll up the sky like the rolling of scrolls for the book. So you gather this trace, which you produced, this phenomenon on which you flow, or this praying mat on which you worship your Lord, and you gather that piece of cloth, and you sew it as a praying mat at the beginning. Then you make it according to the amount of pieces that you gathered, so that it be a protection for you to meet and worship the originator. Glorified be He. It is not that the one who does not wear the patched cloak is not a person of worship, or that the one who does not wear it is far from religion. But you wear it in order to train your ego soul, in respect for your journey and your wayfaring. It teaches you to respect and value the smallest of things. It is the practice of Muslims that if a piece of bread falls on the ground, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would take it and wipe off any dirt from it, say the name of Allah, then eat it. So, you learn these precepts, you learn these virtuous behaviors, not by hearing about them, but through direct practical application. When you start looking and searching along the way for a piece of fabric, and you take it with your own hand, it is not like going to a store and buying it, or having someone else stitch it and offer it to you as a gift. But this is hard work that takes a lot of time, perhaps months, before the patched cloak is completed, while you are in a state of invocation. So ideally, you produce the patched cloak in this manner. If you produce it in this manner, you learn from it some outward lessons like at least how to stitch. This is the least of what you must have learned. Even if something bad happens to your garment, you are now an expert at mending and repairing it by sewing it. So here you are capable of sewing it by yourself and in a state of remembrance. You thus learn that work does not take you away from the remembrance of God. On the contrary, working is worship, and it becomes like this in your eyes. It is invocation and a means of intimate discourse with the Lord. Glorified be He. So when you complete it, this is what you feel. You sense a happiness and a joy in your heart, as if you completed a journey that took you days and nights. Until you arrived at your destination and finished this work of art. That took you days or maybe months or more. So you take it and carry in your heart two things: expansion and contraction. Expansion, because you are happy that you have reached your goal and completed this work. And contraction, because you will hand it to the Shaykh and wonder what his opinion will be of what you made. It is as if you made a product. As if you produce, for example, a work and you take it to the Shaykh so that he blesses that work. When the Shaykh takes it in his hands, he does not see it as patched clothing. He sees it as the invocation of the disciple and the work of the disciple. What the disciple did to reach their goal and complete this matter. He looks at it with his eyes, and he sees its colours, because these colours you found on your path indicate the divine names that influenced you, that you invoked during your search, because while you were searching you were remembering Allah, which made these names come to you. Because we believe that in the spiritual realm of the Malakut of the Merciful, every colour indicates one of the beautiful names of Allah that you have started to gather together. You have gathered your life, you have gathered together your life story, you have gathered your invocation, you have gathered a professional file or resume in a specific period of time, and you hand it to the Shaykh, so the Shaykh's role is as if he corrects it. For example, he asks, why does it have more of a specific colour, while another colour is nowhere to be seen? The person replies, this is what I found, my master, my Shaykh, on my way. They then start sensing some fear and feel that they may not have perfected their work. Then the Shaykh tells them, do not be afraid, it won't do you any harm. This is what Allah destined for you, and this is what He provided for you. For all the colours are names, and they are all goodness and a blessing. And this is your praying mat. This is your clothing, and this is the slate of your deeds by which you seek to come closer to Allah. Glorified be He. So the Shaykh may wear it himself first. And if he does so, then it is to honour the work of the disciple. He does not wear it as an adornment, but rather to accomplish a duty that he has. And that is the pillar of the religion, the prayer. So the Shaykh prays while wearing it 2 voluntary prayer cycles or one of the 5 prescribed prayers. And that is a sign that, as a Shaykh, I have accepted this patched clothing, and that I have given you permission to wear it. According to our rules, the disciple does not have the right to wear it until the Shaykh wears it or until he gives him permission to wear it. Or the Shaykh can spread it out like a praying mat and pray on it. He prays on this patched clothing as if it were a praying mat. Then he prays for the disciple and gives it to them. The same way that you receive the work of a student. Her work gladdened your heart, and you graded it, and you prayed for her to be blessed, and you prayed for her to complete her journey in knowledge seeking successfully. So the disciple takes it and feels pride in it. It is as if they took one of the fundamental principles of the path. And it is not a simple piece of clothing that is thrown mindlessly on the body, given that one has so many other clothes at home to wear. This one in particular is spiritual attire. It carries in it a journey, a spiritual wandering, hard work, worship, invocation, and many other things. And the patched cloak reminds the disciple of them. So every time they lay their gaze upon it, They see the state they went through until they reached this level, and that they themselves made it a foundational principle, and it now carries the secret of the principle and the essence of it on the path to Allah. This is how we see the true Muraka and the Dabla. But in our times, we simply try our best. Of course, there are those with whom we observe these exact steps I am explaining, but there are disciples that we do not want to completely deprive from benefiting. So we sometimes try to help them, the same way you help your students. You give them an opportunity or many opportunities to fulfill the requirements in other ways, and you nevertheless give them full credit for it. So we tell them, brother so-and-so may help you sew it, and brother so-and-so may gather the pieces for you, and brother so-and-so's old garments, he can give you some of it. And you help yourself with one piece, and so on. But the reality of it, or the highest rank of the patched cloak, is the one made in the ideal manner I just explained. And we pray Allah, glorified be He, that I managed to convey the idea.
Yeah, wonderful. I have never thought of cloth as a symbolic leaf before. That's a really intriguing idea. So the next question I have is more philosophical. So another thing that you discussed yesterday was the divine light of Allah, and how this light is something that Allah bestows to whomsoever and however He pleases. And my impression is that one of the goals of the Alkarkari order is to invite this divine light into the body and soul. I wonder if you could talk more about this and how the patched cloak aids in this goal, as well as any other practices you encourage to invite divine light into the body.
When we described and explained the details of how the patched cloak is made, we spoke of it as one of the fundamentals of the Sufi path. What is the meaning of a fundamental or foundational principle? It is one of many stations. It is a vehicle and a celestial steed which makes the disciple, thanks to the patched cloak, ready to receive the light of the Lord, glorified be He. Because we said that ideally, when the disciple wears the patched cloak with personal conviction, they declare that they follow a sheikh, and that they surrender their affair to the sheikh. And what is it that the sheikh possesses so that one should surrender their affairs to him and follow him on his path? The sheikh has a secret, and I, as the disciple too, would like to reach that secret. I would like to know it. And among the practices of the Sufi path is to test the disciple with this patched attire, if they accept it and wear it. That is, they do not wear it against their will, but wear it willingly out of their own satisfaction and desire. This is why they make it themselves. They make it to show that they wholeheartedly accept this journey, that they willingly accept this path. We said that they stitch it by themselves, with a black thread representing the night, or a white thread representing the day, meaning that they stayed awake at night working on it invoking in pitch black darkness, and spent days working on it invoking in broad daylight. This indicates that they do what they do out of personal conviction. Only then, the sheikh gives them the light. He gives them this light. In fact, the light is truly a gift. The light is a gift from Allah, but the portion distributed to the disciple comes through the sheikh. As the messenger, peace and blessings upon him, said, Allah is the provider and I am the distributor. So the sheikh distributes and gives this share to the disciple through assigning them the practice of making and wearing the patched cloak. When you searched for the pieces of cloth to patch, you took your portion. For some, it takes months because they search but cannot find pieces of cloth. For others, it only takes days, and so on. So look what came your way. This is to say, even the hurdles you meet for the sake of completing the patched cloak give you a hint of how your wayfaring will be on the Sufi path. Will it be abridged, or will it be tedious and long? The patched attire is thus a glass that translates this secret, whose significance is like the light of the originator, glorified be He. If Allah is a hidden treasure, a hidden secret, how then is it possible to reach it? Through the gate of the light of Allah, Allah is light. Light of what? The light of the heavens and the earth. And you are a component of the heavens and the earth. Your foot is planted on the earth and your head is in the heavens. And you walk on this earth. And you search, in heavenly invocation, being always in a deep state of invocation, and asking for forgiveness, while in inward conversation with the Lord, glorified be He. And your search is done through sight, hands and feet on the earth. In the hopes that you can bring these two things together, you sowed it in a cycle of time, so you link night and day to produce this work. This means that you make an illuminated way for yourself that leads you to know the treasure and the truth of the originator, glorified be He. Of course, the disciple does not need all these explanations. We cannot tell disciples all these explanations in order to convince them to wear the patched cloak. No, what we want is that because the disciple sees the Shaykh wearing it, they wear it spontaneously. Or when they see the other disciples wearing it, they wears it spontaneously. But in order to wear it, they need the permission of the Shaykh. So when the disciple makes this patched clothing according to our guidelines, and we tell them, "Oh, my child, it is built on 12 colors. These 12 colors are the number of the letters of La ilaha illallah as we mentioned yesterday. These letters include deep and light colors. La ilaha illallah make 12 letters, and Muhammadan Rasulullah, peace and blessings upon him, make 12 letters, and the sum of them is 24 pieces, which is the sum of letters of La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah in letters, which corresponds to 24 hours. These 24 hours include the night hours and the day hours, which you have stitched together with the needle of the hidden aleph of unicity. It is as if it were a hidden aleph. Even the originator, glorified be He, says none of you shall enter the garden till the camel passes through the eye of the needle. And here you are starting to learn how the camel passes through the needle. The camel represents the rope of the ships or boats or the fleet. It seems too thick to run through the eye of the needle. This means that you are now trying to see the name Allah and the names of Allah in a little piece of fabric in the most insignificant thing, let alone seeing the greatness of the Creator in the greatest of created things, like the sun and the moon. So now you can see it in a piece of fabric, in fur even, in wool, in everything, and you respect it and sanctify it. And you gather it with this thread, as if you were trying to let the camel pass through the eye of the needle. And you gather it and you know that you have no ability in and of yourself to do it. It is done only through the power of the originator, by the ability He gifted you, glorified be He. So you start this process and you gather the pieces. The process of gathering in itself awakens in you an inward feeling. You feel your heart moving, your spiritual aspiration stirs. And it makes you magnify the greatness of things. It makes you magnify the greatness of all created beings. It makes you magnify the greatness of periods of time. The hours you spent is a period of time, which spans hours or days as we mentioned before. And they correspond to the daily 24 hours. So it is if you add them together. Of course, we do not ask you to work exclusively on the patched cloak all day and do nothing else, but devote at least 1 hour to it. Give 1 hour to this work, and whenever you sit for stitching, you are reflecting, searching and wondering, what is this colour? And what's the secret behind this colour? And what is this piece of fabric, and what is the secret behind it? And does this piece of fabric and its angles fit with that other piece? You find that what goes in your mind is not like what goes on in the mind of a tailor. It is rather the thought of someone who sees the greatness of the Creator in that which is created. When you approach it in this way, what are you looking for? You are looking for 1 hour. You are looking for the truth of this time which it took to make this patched garment. As the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, says, "There is an hour when only my Lord suffices me." So you are looking for this hour in order to gather all these names and know the divine truth by them. So you start that process. Just start with a pure heart and a firm intention. the light of the Lord starts to appear to you in the pieces, and you start seeing it in these pieces. And the light shows in the thread and in this process. And now, the fruit of this work that you did. For when you start this work, it bestows the light of Allah on you. Its greatness becomes magnified in your heart and mind. This is when you know that it is truly a fundamental and a shining light and a celestial steed that can help you attain knowledge of the originator, glorified be He, or knowledge of the secret of this universe, which is a trace of the light of Allah. You spiritually travel. So, by virtue of this process and following his guidance, the Shaykh gives you a light in your life's journey, and he wants to convey a message to you that the light of Allah is present in everything, in the smallest thing and in the greatest of things. It is in the farthest thing as in the closest of things. Thus, you have to search for the truth hidden in everything. He tells you that this light exists in all horizons. So respect the horizons and respect nature. Respect and magnify the greatness of the earth and heaven. Respect and magnify the greatness of all that the eye can see. He teaches you that all that you see is reflected in you. Because even this patched clothing is one piece of you, you who will wear it. As if the message is that these horizons are nothing but your own image, and you are their treasure, and you are their secret. So look for your treasure in the mirror of the universe, which is your image. But if you belittle this mirror and belittle this universe, if you belittle these phenomena, or even the most insignificant thing in it, you are not aware that what you belittle is in fact yourself. You belittle your role as vicegerent Khalifa, which Allah assigned to you in His kingdom, without being aware of it. Therefore, if you belittle others, what you will gain is arrogance, vain self-admiration, and envy. And these traits push you away from being present. But if you respect others and magnify their greatness, then all that you see in the other is nothing but an impression of yourself. If you see evil in the other, you try to wipe it off from yourself until you do not see it in others, because when you do so, then all you see will be goodness. Likewise, you used to see thrown out pieces of fabric as dirty and good for nothing. But now, you see that they are everything, because you have cleaned them of those things that you used to believe, like that they were good for nothing. You used to say, they are good for nothing. Now you say, in fact it is me who is good for nothing. At least these pieces of cloth are fit to be a garment. They are fit to be a shirt. They are fit to be many things, whereas I myself, I am good for nothing. Only then do you start wiping off the impurity and filth from your thoughts and your imagination. And this is described as a primary branch of faith, clearing the path of harm. To clear yourself of harm, the harm of vain self-admiration, the harm of arrogance, the harm of envy, the harm of haughtiness and jealousy, and being full of oneself and so on. This process starts with the smallest of things, which is a piece of thrown-away fabric. So you are trying your best. What's important is not only the fabric. What is important is that you see what others tread on carelessly as a celestial steed, which takes you to the originator, glorified be.
Okay. I think this last question really goes well with what you were describing just now. So I'm aware that in some of your work you've written about saints who wore patched clothing and how the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam encouraged the repurposing of old clothing and mending. Can you say, I think you already have, can you say a bit about how your members live within these principles, but also how other Muslims and perhaps even non-Muslims might be inspired to wear fashions that are more sustainable, for example, that increase their feeling of being connected to the natural world and connected to their creator?
As far as the patched cloak is concerned, since we specified that it is made of wool or skin or fur, before becoming this patched garment, it was once skins and fabrics. In the past, they were used as parchments on which letters were written and knowledge was recorded. This is how knowledge was gathered, and even the Quran was first written on parchments made of skin. But now, since divine blessings are abundant, we become careless of these things. However, if we raise a generation who magnifies the greatness of the most insignificant things, like the patched cloak, this is only part of magnifying the greatness of all created beings. So we start by magnifying the greatness of every little thing that is thrown away. And we see everything as a great thing. And we try to make something out of it that deepens our spiritual relationship with the Creator. Glorified be He. First of all, that approach will make us aware of our connection with Allah. When we do it in this way for the sake of Allah, glorified and sublime is He. At the same time, it is an act of preserving nature. This is only one aspect of the matter, one of so many. Similarly, the patched cloak is only one part of the disciples' wayfaring, that is, to have a garment. Today, the disciples no longer limit themselves to making garments out of these pieces of cloth. Some made a praying mat out of them. Some made a canvas and wrote Quranic verses on it. Some wrote the name of Majesty Allah on it. Some master the art of motif. They master stitching on fabric. And they put signs on it that they see in visions during their wayfaring in general or during their retreat while invoking, like the lamp, the glass, the shining star, the beautiful names of Allah, or anything that appears to the disciple. As they begin to gather knowledge, they start gathering knowledge, and instead of gathering it and writing it down on a sheet of paper, they gather it and write it on patched pieces of fabric, and they use it to decorate their houses. I entered the houses of many disciples on the occasion of a celebration or a gathering for invocation, for example, and I found that they had made a bed sheet from patches of cloth stitched together. Some of them made a throw for the couch they sit on, or a patched tablecloth. I started seeing what these disciples were inspired to do as a result of their spiritual journeying and wayfaring, from their understanding of the patched cloak and their magnification of the greatness of these pieces of fabric. They started innovating even beyond clothing. They used the same method in their everyday furnishings and in many more uses. Some disciples stop by the tailor and ask him to gather the pieces of fabric he intends to discard for them. They come back and take them to make a pillow or similar things out of them, like accessories and so on. And this is not something exclusive to women. Men practice that too. So you find the homes of the Karkari disciples adorned with these colours and full of patched items, all sorts of things. And in every bag that they carry you will find these things, so that everything is mixed. Patched items become like decorations for the senses and for the material feel. And at the same time, it is clear that this work is handmade. They made something with their own hands rather than buying it from the market, thus contributing to cleaning and clearing the path from harm. They recycle the pieces of cloth that were intended to be unnecessarily thrown away or burnt, and instead repurpose them and use them in so many ways in their daily life. They make items for their children and others. Some make toys out of them. This entire process that they engage in contributes to what you are hinting to, the idea of sustainability. This is the outward aspect of the matter. At the same time, all this practice inwardly reminds one of one's relationship with Allah, because it is something that one's own hands produced and they know its secret. Now, they know the secret of gathering colours and gathering pieces of fabric, the secret of gathering anything and sticking them together with white or black thread, and so on and so forth. In their eyes, it is not a piece of furniture. To them, it is a spiritual symbol or illusion, which brings them closer to Allah and reminds them of the work they did and the long hours that were filled with invocation. The loftiest thing in their life is this work that they accomplished, which trained their ego souls, provided them with spiritual training, brought them hope, and introduced joy and love to their hearts. In doing this, they cultivate a connection to nature. You find them always walking in the streets, and always, whenever they see a piece of fabric, they take it. So this process is a matter of self-development and spiritual preparation. But for individual disciples, for example, if you take the numbers of disciples in the order throughout the world, they seldom display this spiritual practice. However, any human being can adopt this teaching, even if they are not officially affiliated with our Sufi order, and implement this practice. We can see today that the style of patched clothing is taking over the markets. Stores carry patched clothing. On the contrary, the most expensive items are now patched clothes. A patched pair of shoes are the most expensive pair of shoes. You can find a patched jalaba or pair of pants for sale because it is now a fashion in itself. It is as if, for people today, fashion is no longer something new. Fashion in my life in this era, the era of the Karkari Sufi order, is to go back to what is old, what was discarded and has been recycled. This became a fashion in itself. This is something we see in the media and elsewhere. And you are well placed to notice this trend. In the past, clothing had one color or was multicolored, and whatever was new was accepted as fashion. But things have changed now. Now people have been so saturated with novelty that they became bored. And so they return to what is old and want to bring it back. We did not adopt patched clothing for this reason, but because we have adopted it as a way of life, in a state of invocation of Allah, and for the sake of obedience to Allah, Allah blessed it, and many people incorporate it into their work unconsciously, even if they are not committed to the spiritual path. Allah made people adopt the same principle in clothing. Big fashion names wear the patched cloak. Big art names wear the patched cloak. They were not given permission to wear them, and they do not know their secret, but they nevertheless were drawn by its joyfulness. They were drawn by its colors. They even prefer that they be sewn out of old scraps or old rags, and do not prefer it to be made of new items, and that is recycling. As for the prophetic tradition, it is enough for us that when the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, moved on to the company of his Lord, our mother Aisha came out with a garment and said, "This is what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was wearing when his soul was taken." It was a pieced-together garment, meaning patched. It is enough for us that it was the practice of the commander of the faithful, our master Omar, the distinguisher between truth and falsehood of Islam. He wore a patched garment. But concepts change over time, and criticism increases in all domains. We do not mean criticism directed at the patched attire only. Every existing matter has supporters and faces opposition. But the patched cloak prescribed itself because it is firmly grounded. Its foundation is in the prophetic tradition, and in the practice of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Its usage can be found in the lives of the prophets and messengers, and its origin was with our father and the father of all humanity, Adam. At the time of his arrival to the earth, he came down from paradise wearing patched clothing, meaning that its origin reminds you of paradise. It is an origin that reminds one of fields of knowledge, and of the Lord, glorified be he.
Yeah, I'll just follow up to say that I definitely, among my students, see great interest in, as you say, the trend of patching. And I do think that they see it as a practice that encourages love and hope for the future. That's a really beautiful sentiment.
Yes, in fact, patching is an exercise that even helps one gather one's thoughts. It collects scattered thoughts. When a person learns how to stitch things and make something out of them, many say that their thoughts are scattered. They say, "I have a scattered mind and cannot focus on one thought." This practice teaches them to gather all of their thoughts in the truth of one thought. They can use even the thoughts they were once afraid of, unifying them in the same thought, which is one's purpose in life. This practice confers on the person a sense of calmness and of stillness. They see patching not only as a fundamental in the Karkari Sufi order, but also as of great benefit to the human being in general, to sit for hours with oneself, devoted to doing one specific thing. In the end, this gives one the opportunity to discover how to sit, how to be calm, something that many have lost in our time, even though there is enough time. Many struggle to use this practice to sit alone with themselves. It has become common when seeing someone sitting alone to say that he may be suffering from depression or some adversity. On the contrary, when someone sits with themselves, it is in their eyes the happiest time, alone, doing something, for the sake of Allah, and for the sake of His countenance. So this garment is part of that inner work which brings one to a state of calmness and stillness, gathering their scatteredness in the presence of their Lord.
That is definitely some wisdom that my students can use.
God willing, this is what I would like to achieve, and this is what I aspire to accomplish, truly. In reality, in the places I have visited, I have met students who are very talented in their studies or fields, PhDs and master's degree students, although studying very rare fields, but they lack the spiritual breath. Some of these students suffer from spiritual emptiness. That emptiness causes their knowledge to become dry, barren and fruitless. Knowledge that is a body without a soul, as if it were dead. It needs the illumination of knowledge. If the student practices some of these principles of the patched cloak, it would have the effect of a class in their school day or year. It is not something that takes them away from their studies or the knowledge they pursue, but rather it revitalizes them and revitalizes that knowledge. They start to love their studies and no longer consider it to be a tedious daily routine, which entails memorization and performance, doing research and submitting work. This production is centered on satisfying others, whereas this practice is something that gives one personal satisfaction first. It allows one to become satisfied with what one has accomplished. Only then can they become truly productive, producing abundant output, and give us more, so that we benefit from their knowledge. Because then we would be dealing with someone who sees this knowledge as a living thing. They consider this branch of knowledge something that is alive. They see life in it and a means of connection. They see their religion in it, and they see it as a connection to that which is high and that which is low. It connects directions and dimensions. It is multidimensional. So they produce something. Instead of limiting themselves to imitation or replication of what others have done, instead of taking and handing over the same imitated material without an inblowing or breath, instead of telling someone that they have to take this inblowing through a specific practice, we initiate them into it in a subtle way, depending on each person and their aptitudes, according to their knowledge that they learn. Or we might introduce a practice specific to their field of knowledge. Then they can produce something that can impress us. So the teacher becomes impressed by his student. This is the best outcome, that the teacher takes pride in their student, because they fill the teacher or the professor with pride. Because their pride is in the student who learn at their hands. The teacher loves their student the same way they love their own children. Therefore, they want to see them become even better than themselves, as they will carry the teacher's name after them. When asked, "Who was your teacher?" they will answer, "It was Dr. So-and-so or Professor so-and-so." Something we have witnessed is that when you find teachers who are spiritually rich, despite the fact that they teach math or physics or another science, you find that their knowledge carries some of that spiritual breath. You can also find those who behave as if it is no more than a job they have to do on a daily basis, as if they can't wait to get rid of it. The practice we are talking about makes knowledge closer to one's heart. So that if you tell the teacher that time is up, their job is done, or that their shift is over, they will say, "I am not leaving. I will stay and do this work voluntarily until I meet my Lord. Because work has turned into an act of worship for them. And this is something we can find in the prophetic tradition. The Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, said work is an act of worship. But in our time, work has turned into a mere job and salary. That's it for them. It expires at its expiration date. And the true role of the scholar and of the researcher is thus lost.
My students are generally not encouraged to see learning as an act of worship. Shukran.
May Allah reward you and grant you generosity.